Over 2,400 members in South Africa. We are passionate and we love what we do. We are excited to announce that we have another extraordinary conference coming your way in 2020. It's Think Digital Together. Thinking Digital. The ASACA South Africa 2020 Annual Conference. You're waiting for? Get your ticket today. Thinking Digital.
Excited and I want to learn in this conference. Our emerging technologies, building communities. From top industry experts.
Valuable information.
Very excited.
Register today. We hope to see you there.
Hi everyone, this is Nolan Nadesan, and I'll be taking you through to POPI and where to start with all of this. And a few weeks ago, when we were talking about who should get to speak, and I thought, well, I've been getting a lot of questions around this topic, and a lot of people are wondering, where do we even begin with this? And obviously, because we're hot on the heels of this, and those of us who have been in IT governance and project management and in the data space for the last few years have been talking about this. And yeah, it's something that's quite relevant, and I'm sure everyone's under a tremendous amount of pressure to start delivering on this. So I just wanted to lay out some of the things that we're going to be talking about in this session. I mean, I'll put a structure in place. However, we might go a bit back and forth, and feel free to raise a question in the comments or in the chat. Either myself or Andre will pick it up and we'll be able to discuss it. So you don't have to wait to the end of the session to ask your questions. Feel free, ask questions. I know virtual is quite different. We don't have that like in-person presence, but let's try our best and see what we can do to make the best of this. So guys, first we want to try and address, just to make sure everyone's on the same page on what POPI is. Why do we need to do this? What do we do about it? Who's our stakeholders? How are we actually impacted and affected? And then lastly, which is actually what I'm here to try and cover, is where do we actually begin with this? Because all of this information, it's coming at us, and there's a lot of pressure from companies. And with all of it, you actually just need to know, where do I start? So what is POPI about? So protection of personal information. Now, POPI is the equivalent of GDPR. So lots of us have heard about GDPR, and that was started about 2 years ago in 2018, or started maybe 2017, 2018. And it's very similar to what we have now here, POPI. There is a bit of overlap, but I'm not going to get into the details of the actual differences between GDPR and POPI. I'm still want to focus more on POPI. But at a very high level, GDPR places, their fines are larger than ours. Their level of accountability and responsibility on a business is different from ours. Some of the major things that we place focus on is that the responsible party, like a business, has to take ownership end to end. So there's slight differences. Obviously, you will have to pick out in your business, how does it affect you? Because if your business is a business that works across the world or in Europe, then you need to comply with GDPR as well as POPI. It sets the conditions for businesses to process people's information, right, according to the law. And it's done just to protect our consumers, protect our people of this country. There's been lots of cybersecurity breaches, and as a result of that, POPI was born. I mean, we've all seen some of the major issues that happen, not even breaches, but just what can be done with data, the misuse of data, and how it can be used just in ways that are just not right. I mean, if we think about a while ago for the US elections, and it was Cambridge Analytica. I mean, we saw how Facebook information was used there. And a lot of that, could have been curbed if we had policies like this in place. The other thing it does is it targets organizations and the way in which it processes information, people's information. They've also got some other clause in there about a juristic person, and that's really referring to a business and the entity or the group of people that make that up. Now, you can see that last point that I've got there, responsible party is also responsible for the failure by their operators. So let's just take a second to think about that, right? And when I first read that, and I read some of these items in POPI Act and some of the other legal documentation that's provided by lots of these attorney companies or legal tech companies, the struggle that I sometimes have with this is it's not simple enough for me to just understand plain and simple. So I'm going to assume that some of you are like me and that you'd like a very simplified version of that. And let's look at what is the application of that last statement. So let's say a call center environment, right? If you are a business that has its own call center, right? You acquire your customers' information and you process it. So you're the responsible party and you're the operator because you're processing it as well. So in that event, if you have a data breach or failure to comply, right, within your business, you're responsible, you are the responsible party and you're the operator. The data subject is, of course, the person or your customer. So that's three role players in there. The data subject, responsible party, and the operator, which we just covered now. Funny enough, while I was looking for images for this, I came across images of people, and then I thought, okay, great. I don't want to actually go and violate something by taking a picture, taking someone's picture that's circulating on the internet. So I just decided to go with cartoons instead. Again, data subject is a person, and an interesting point with what I was reading on that is, so personal information would be, let's say Nolan Nadesan, right? That's me, my name, right? But it has to be connected with something else for it to be considered information, right? So it have to have, if you have my name and surname, you'd have to be able to associate it with something else, like let's say my home address, right? Now, those two together make up information. So I'm not entirely sure whether they would just consider name alone as just raw data, because once you put data together and you find the correlation between it, it becomes information. But that's actually what it looks like, and that's the kind of information that's out there. So you've got to have the subject's name, right, and another related piece of information, right, or another related piece of data together that makes information. Now, where to begin? So the deadline, we've got the 1st of July, 2021. Lots of articles that I've read, and in the project management space that I'm a part of, we know that 12 months for a lot of businesses actually isn't a lot of time. some companies probably thinking out there that, hey, I've got 12 months, man. I'm sure I can do this. But the amount of effort required in terms of first, you'd have to figure out what is your state of your data, right? We'll get there, guys. We'll get there. I've got some notes on that. But the very first thing you need to do is you need to get support from your organization to do this. If you are your IT governance professional, you are a project manager in the business, you're part of an audit team, you from finance, you're someone legal in the business, right? To get an effort like this done, you need support from your executives. You need support from your chiefs, your board of directors, managing director. So first start with briefing your board, right? You need to get buy-in from them. You'll need to get buy-in from them in terms of why you need to do this. And you'll need resourcing as well. Okay, we seem to have a question that's come through. Does the operator role extends to third-party or vendor suppliers? Yes, it does. So the operator, so let's see if I can go back. Okay, so back one slide. So data subject, right, being your customer, right? Responsible party being the business. So let's just say I'm the data subject and Andri is a business. Andri is selling insurance, but she's the business that just makes up the portfolio and manages it. But in terms of the actual part of the business that makes a phone call and administrates that with the customer, that's a call center that she's outsourced work to. So that would be the operator. So let's say that call center, the operator, right? It's not part of the business. It's a separate third party. It's a vendor. It's a supplier. That vendor somehow mishandles the information and gets leaked out, right? Who is held responsible? It's actually the business. The responsible party would be the business. Yes, the operator as well needs to be compliant. So it's the entire value chain that needs to be compliant, not just the responsible party, right? The entire value chain, which is quite interesting, because it's forcing compliance amongst everyone that's feeding off this data. Everyone who's touching it needs to be compliant. Informing your executives, you need to let them know the role that they play in this. So we've talked about why you need to brief the board, why you need to get buy-in. Right? Now, anyone who's done any sort of project management, right, will understand the need and the value in having your stakeholder buy-in involvement, right? Because they can't just be this person or this group of people who says, right, that's great, go and do it, right? They need to be involved and they need to have a role in it, an active role, right? They need to see the deliverables. They need to understand the impact of what's going on with this. If it doesn't get done, what does it mean for the business? Now, what does it mean for your business? Okay. So we've got a section on risk assessment later, but we can just talk about it now. There's fines involved. There's severe fines, right? And it's assessed based on the severity of the situation, but it's upward of R1 million, right? And can be R1 million per instance. So it mounts up quite fast. And the bonus on top of that, which I'm being sarcastic, guys, the bonus on top of that is actually jail time, right? There can be jail time involved in this, right? So it's quite serious here in South Africa. And your executives would be the people accountable for this. So if you are your IT governance professional in the organization, from what I've read, right, you're not the person that's going to go to jail if this is breached. It's going to be someone at the top, someone like your CIO, your CTO, someone at the C level, someone at the top. So that's pretty much a sure way of getting buy-in and getting them to have a concerted effort in this project. Now the purpose and the register of the data, right? One of the first things you need to do is you need to understand the purpose for which you're using the data, because that's actually something that has to be documented, and it's part of the compliance approach and journey. Your business needs to understand why it's using that. Also, you have to have that kind of conversation with your customer. Your customer needs to know, why do you need my name and surname? Why do you need my ID number? Why do you need my home address? Why do you need to know which bank I bank with, right? Whereas sometimes it may seem obvious to us, but you have to disclose these reasons so that POPI basically says that you have to be very specific in the way in which you process this information. The other thing is the register, right? All data in your organization regarding this personal information has to have a register, right? That register needs to have information like, and it's not, there's no real prescription on what this register has to have, but some of the things that you should have on it is, where is it stored? How is it stored? Who has access to it? Those are vital pieces of information. If you have, say for instance, customer credit card details that are sitting in your CRM system, you cannot have access to that, such sensitive information, to everyone who has access to the CRM system, right? That's a red flag. If a breach occurs, you almost wouldn't be able to tell how the breach occurred. It would be almost too late for you to do anything about it. You know, it's going to be way after the fact. So those are just good things to have on the register. Obviously, if you want more information, you're welcome to contact me, drop me a mail after the session. Consent. Now, for the last couple of years, whenever telemarketers or insurance companies contact you, you'll find they'll ask you for verbal consent, right? If they can capture your information, right? Now, the key on that is consent is about capturing your data subjects' information. They don't actually have to give you consent to process the information, right? The person within the organization, the responsible party, makes that decision on what they do with the information, the data subject's information, or whether it is processed or how it is processed. But the main thing is the consent to actually obtaining that information. Now, with obtaining the information as well, you have to give the data subject the opportunity, right, to say, no, I don't want my information to be processed. So let's say in the example now, your business has been operating for 7 years, and you're doing this POPI compliance journey. Now you've got 1,000 customers that you've accumulated over the years, and you didn't actually get consent, or you're not sure if you got consent, or you don't have a register that says you obtained consent. You need to go and do that. You actually have to, if you don't have someone in your business, you actually have to have someone available, whether it's in your business, outside your business, who can contact all of these people, all your data subjects, and gain consent, right? for having captured the information. And in that moment, they would then have to ask if they object to the processing of information, of their personal information. So that consent part it's so critical, right? That's just the first step. Remember, this session is just about where do we begin, okay? This is just the start of it, guys. And if you think about it, if you have so many people to actually contact, it's going to take a long time to get through them. Okay, so we've got another question. When can we start holding accountable the telemarketers that use our details to call daily and sell us products we do not use? Okay, so I've been asking that question for years to telemarketers, right? Why do you have my information, right? Who said you can call me? And lots of us will find that maybe on our banking documentation, if we're signing for a credit card, a loan, some kind of rewards program, it'll have a tick box there that says you'll earn more points if you tick this box and say that you can farm out your information to a third party or partner sales. But on the point of accountability, right? Remember, we've got 1 year to implement, right? It's 1 year to implement. The enforcement of it only happens from the 1st of July, 2021. So companies actually should be responsible enough and taking the initiative now and start doing this. They shouldn't have to wait till 2021, 1st July. Right? The responsible thing to do is do it now. Don't wait till later. And that's why this piece of consent here, it's so pivotal that your business starts doing this, right? Because it'll take a long time, guys, to do this part. So it needs to begin soon. So by law, accountable, you can only be held accountable according to the Act on the 1st of July, 2021, because it's not enforced now. There's an implementation period. Now, risk assessment, staff awareness. Okay, sorry guys, there's one thing I wanted to do. Let's see. All right. Okay, so I've just launched a poll. And I want to know what department your organization or what department of your organization are you from? Can everyone see this? Is everyone receiving the poll? Okay, let's move on to risk assessment and staff awareness. Now, the risk assessment is really important to tell you your current state. And it's also going to tell you how far off the mark you are. It's going to tell you, it's going to give you a good gauge of how much of money you need to spend on this, right? How fast you need to move. It's going to tell you the size of your project. And then with managing that risk, it's great to have this assessment. It's great to have this register. But your staff And I say this with respect to people. Your staff are also part of your risk, right? Because they're the ones that handle the data. So if your staff are just unaware of the process, they're unaware of how to handle data, right? And they haven't been trained in this, consider them a risk to your business. Okay, see we have the polling that's coming through. That's great. Okay, so I just wanted to get an indication of the audience that's here. And it's quite interesting looking at this. So with mainly audit, eh? Okay. So what's interesting about this and seeing this is with lots of the reports, it said that people in the industry who are mainly aware of this are management and executives. So it would of course be legal, right? And this was a report, a 2019 and a 2018 report by a security company called Sophos, if I'm saying it correctly. So in their report, they go on to say that the people with the highest involvement in these projects, POPI, right, in the business, it's audit and it's technology and management. So this actually hasn't been much from legal, and in this, saying to us it's only 1%. Okay, it's quite interesting. So let's move on to the next. Share that results with everyone. So we covered risk assessment, we covered staff awareness. And we have another question. In the event of a data breach, how will organizations be expected to disclose such a breach and to whom? Does POPI mean that a company will have to declare it if they've, okay, the last part of that question is cut out, but yeah, data breach. So like with all data breaches, before you even communicate and tell anyone about it, you actually need to understand the extent of the breach. You need to assess it first, understand the risk. That's why the risk assessment is so important, right? With any breach, any security-related event. And yes, you would have to inform the customer. So if you think about, again, example, PlayStation, right? When PlayStation had a data breach a couple of years ago on their customers' credit cards, right? I mean, that was one of the worst things for them to do for themselves when it was the right thing to do. And I'm a PlayStation user. So they had to disclose and mail all their customers, right, that could have potentially been breached. So yes, you do have to disclose that, right? But before doing it, as a business, right, as a business owner, you really have to know the situation you're dealing with. You need to go down that part of risk assessment and understand the state of your security and security landscape before you make a statement like that, because it can be highly damaging to your reputation. At the same time, it can show that you're responsible. So there's always a way to stand out and act with good behavior and do the right thing. But another question here, what's the practical ways to reach out to thousands of customers. Yeah, okay. So one of the methods that I've been involved in, so I've had a number of companies contact me on that exact same question. And funny enough, it's actually only been like since Thursday last week to now, since we started to advertise for this event now. So I'm still formulating that. And one of the ways we're trying to think of, myself and the team, is bulk SMS system. However, there's a bit of a problem there, because if a customer doesn't know you have their information, they will want to know in the first place, why are you SMSing me, or why are you sending me communication. So in all honesty, that's a very difficult one that I am trying to work out. You're welcome to contact me. I'll share my contact details. You can even add me on LinkedIn as well, and I'll see if I can assist you. So we've got a few more polls, and I'm going to still continue. Andre or Esther, you can run the polls, because I seem to be having some difficulty from mine to try and run the polls. So what we've covered here so far, I just want to put this up just to make sure we've covered all these items. So I said, we need to identify the purposes for processing the data, why you actually need it, why you're using it, right? You need to have a register, right, for processing the data, and the register of your data itself. You need to communicate with your customers, right? That's for consent. So we've got about 3 points there, just relating to consent. Right? You need to communicate with the customer. They need to know you have their details. Right? You need to get consent from them if they're legacy customers, legacy data in your system. And you need to also give them the opportunity to object from processing of the information. There's also one other piece of information that's actually quite important. It's referred to as de-identification of information. So if you're going to discard the information, the manner in which you do it has to be handled very carefully. It would be like digitally shredding information. If you see paper and you have a paper shredder and you've got your bank statements on it, you actually run it through those paper shredders and strip it up. So there's methods to do that for digital data. We've got people on our team who can actually direct you in the right direction on how to actually do that. You're welcome to contact me. That's a whole nother process and exercise for security professionals who are actually involved in this process as well. So POPI is quite large, guys. It's more than legal, right? It's more than just a tech project. It's quite large. There's a lot of key players in this. So these are the questions that we tried to address in this session. Talked about what is POPI, why we should do it, the repercussions of it, and what do we do about it. Who's involved, our main stakeholders. Now, all of this about POPI is fantastic, right? All of this information. But what we need to remember is POPI is about people's rights, right? But more than that, POPI is about data. Yeah? It's about information. And why I bring it back to data is because disparate pieces of data put together and the relationship found between them makes information. So as much as this is a legal journey, right? It's compliance, it's law, we have to do it, right? It's actually very much a governance and data science project. So if you have data science professionals in your company, they would be ideal people to actually get involved in this. They would be the guys who would be able to dig into this and love it. They'd go nuts over this, and you'll be in a good state if you've got data science professionals in your team. So I'm just trying to move this out of the way. So of the people who have started their POPI journey, looks like 52% say yes, 28% say no, and 20% say maybe. Okay, so we've got, it's nearly a 50-50 split. So in a 50-50 split, guys, remember we've only got 12 months. It's the 8th of July. If you want to count this month out, there's 11 months, right? And as a project manager, I can tell you that 11 months in most companies is not enough time to get something significant done, right? Even if you say you're using agile approaches and all that stuff, that's fantastic, right? But just getting off the mark and getting started and preparing yourself, right? Good analysis and planning can take anything from 1 month to 2 months, right? That's just analysis and planning. That's before you even get started, okay? So you're left with 9 months, right? And 9 months again, guys. It's depending on the size of your organization, the amount of data that you have there. It's short, it's tight. So my advice to you, get started. Start as soon as you can. One of my last slides here. So there's different points of views, and I've just separated them into 3 main. In your journey on this, there'll be the business view, the legal view, and the IT view, right? The people from the legal side of things will be looking at it in terms of compliance, and yes, we must comply, we have to follow it. It's the law, right? Between business and IT, you might find a problem between, these two are usually inversely proportional. It's the usability of the information and the security around it, because security and usability are usually inversely proportional. So you'll find a bit of difficulty, a bit of challenges between business and IT and legal, right? And obviously business will be concerned about the cost implication of doing this. But one way of getting around that, guys, is you need to look at the risk assessment, right? Use your risk assessment if you're trying to get buy-in for this effort, right? Use your risk assessment, right, to get the resources you require. If it's budget you require to get an IT professional, right, on POPI, or get a project manager who can come in and do this for you, right? And you need budget for that. Use your risk assessment. Right? It'll be the #1 place to go to get started. I mean, apart from this, the other items that are listed. Thanks, guys. That's my email address. You can contact me there. You can also contact me on LinkedIn. So, guys, any questions? No, we've had some good questions along the way. But if there's any more questions, feel free to ask. I mean, you can put it into the chat. Andre, I think it's okay if they unmute themselves and ask the question, right?
Yeah, definitely. If someone raises their hand, we will definitely unmute them and let them ask over the mic. And you definitely have 2 more polls that we will run. And I just sent you 2 more questions that were in the chat box that you did not get to during the presentation. So if you can just quickly answer them. And are you available to consult on POPI is another question.
Is that on the?
On the chat, yes.
Yes, I am. So you can reach me on that email address, LinkedIn, or yeah, I can maybe send me a private message. I'll send you my cell phone number or email me. I would just normally say out my cell phone number, but the large crowd kind of intimidates me from sharing my cell phone number out there. Okay, so let's see. This question that's here is, would the issue of consent still apply to dormant customers? Yes, it would. Would we not be required to de-identify dormant data subjects as opposed to contacting them to get consent? So the de-identification, yes, that is definitely a route you can take. De-identify. There are some extra measures and steps around that because it is a process. It's not just a simple strike it out from your database and it's gone and you don't have to worry about it. So there is a process. It's a small journey of its own. You're welcome to contact me on that. Yeah. Let's see, another question. Organizations that fall under statutory bodies like insurance, will there be specific regulations? POPI will be the overall regulation for all acts of information to comply to. That's a good question because a lot of people are asking that. POPI is the end all and be all for personal information. So if there are any other acts that come out later, they would have to comply with POPI or kind of like be a subset of POPI and comply with that. Yeah, cookies. So do you have information regarding website opt-in cookie messaging? Yeah, definitely. So cookies are quite an important one. And it's quite a tricky one as well because it does affect the business in terms of the way it operates and contacts customers. Yeah, so that kind of, well, cookies have to be disclosed, and there's a new write-up that needs to be done for cookies. Although, we do ask for consent, or any website that captures cookies usually do ask for consent from the customers if they do accept that. So, yeah, the topic of cookies, that's going to be a challenging one because everyone uses cookies here. Terence, are you on the call? Well, what's your opinion there?
Terence is not on the call. Any other opinions on that? I unfortunately can't comment on that. Is there anyone else that can possibly assist on this? Sent you another question.
So, yes, that is. So I'm just getting to that now. As an operator, can I shift liability to the responsible party for failing to comply with acts? Yeah, so it's not about palming off responsibility because as an operator, you need to be compliant as well, right? The difference is that the responsible party, the business, right, that you are supplying the work to, right, has to be compliant. Now, in the value chain, everyone needs to be compliant, but the responsible party is the one who would be fined, the one who would be found to be non-compliant. But just watch out there because there can be legalities where the responsible party, right, could share, right, his liabilities with you, right? those things are usually in the fine print, and even before POPI, they've been there with almost all companies, right? Whenever there's a third-party vendor relationship, one of the risk mitigation strategies for data breaches or any kind of thing like that is always to share in the liability of some kind of disaster. So just watch out for that one, right? There's usually something shared in the contract.
This is actually a very good question, and I've wondered this as well. Because of COVID-19, we are required to sign a register with our personal details. Is it not a breach of POPI Act as that register remains there for everyone to see?
So I did cover that last week with another company, and with COVID, the rules change a bit, right? Because that register is required for contact tracing, it's fine for a company to ask you to disclose that information. So yeah, it is a funny one. It is. It's almost like the one that stands outside of the norm.
And then obviously maybe one last question here. The engagement was off the charts today.
So the last one is there a standard template of POPI risk assessment questions that you can share? There isn't a standard template, right? Usually when I draw this kind of thing up, I do it based on the business. So reach out to me, I can assist you with that.
There's one more. Hobby says she can respond to the on the group to the cookies question. So we can maybe just Kahabo, are you there?
Okay, so we got another question here. Okay, that's a COVID. We covered the COVID one. Another cookie. So as a start, a cookie policy should contain what information will be collected and why and how. From a technical perspective, the website should give the visitor the choice which cookies they are comfortable to be activated. Okay. Thanks, Maynard. Okay, we don't have any more questions.
Okay, well, if that's that, thank you so much, Nolan, for your time and for this presentation. Everyone felt it very necessary and so informative, especially in today's current situation. Obviously, there was a bunch of questions and we were all, there she answered. Cookies are not explicitly mentioned, but if processing personal information, then will be protected by POPI. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much. And we will definitely, thank you, Nolan, from the audience. We will definitely perhaps have a follow-up with all of these questions. Perhaps have another presentation on this. So we can maybe just...
Yeah. So before we leave, Andre, I just remembered. So I know that Project Management South Africa on the 23rd of July is having another presentation, and they asked me to speak about POPI, but from a project management perspective. So I'll be speaking at PMSA virtual event as well on the 23rd. So if you guys are interested, feel free. That's also a free one. Feel free, join that webinar. It's on the 23rd of July at 6 p.m.
Okay, wonderful. We'll definitely do that. Thank you so much, and then we'll see you at our next webinar. Keep an eye on our social media pages and our website, and then we'll see you again.
Cool. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Cheers.